Chapter 5. The Bare Bones of Things. After a very long and absolutely mortifying education in my new biology, I walk out of the bathroom. I'm fairly certain I'm blushing with the tittering Celestia looming over me. "Oh, come now. It wasn't that bad a 10-minute span, was it?" she asks me, and I freeze. "It was only 10 minutes?" "That was 10 minutes? I could swear it took several hours," I mention, before beginning to walk again. "I should not have brought up Velvet," I mutter to myself, forgetting for a moment the Celestia is with me. "Perhaps. However, I find it encouraging," she says, and I try to look upwards, and I'm certain I get the point across, but I can't tell until she speaks again. "It is encouraging because it shows that despite all the horrors inflicted upon you, that you can still care for another. Even if you need a few drinks first, it is a good step," she says, and I'm rather confused before a thought crosses my mind. "Does that mean I'm getting booze?" I ask, and I hope to get a brace before I have to deal with Luna. "I'm sorry, but there is an age restriction. You need to be physically 21 years of age," she tells me, and me and my eyebrows raise. "I am well over 20 years of age," I remind her, and there is no reaction I can hear. "You do realize that I can't hear you shaking your head or nodding or anything of the sort?" I remark, without even bothering to phrase like a question. "Some questions answer themselves, little one. Which reminds me, Luna still has to pick out a name for you," Celestia remarks, and I trip, which is quite a feat considering I wasn't moving. Just what the hell gives her that right? I haven't had a name for only 70 years, and I sure as hell don't need one now," I tell her, doing my best to spin around, but I'm not used to moving like that on four hooves, and I'm twisting myself onto the floor and lying on my side while pointing my right forehoof up at her. "Do you even know what her adoption of you means?" she asks me, and I'm silent for a moment before shaking my head. "It means that she's going to be dedicating almost all of her time to you for the next 15 years at least. She wants to be your mother. She wants you to be her son," Celestia explained as I clumsily got onto all four hooves again and tilted my head upwards to listen. "Why? I'm an unstable mass murderer with power over death itself," I ask, and my head starts spinning again. This has to stop sometime soon or I'll lose all sense of balance. "You are? Really? Because you look more like a lost alicorn foal in need of her home and a hug," she says in a tone I can't identify, but it makes me nervous. It also gets me fidgeting a little. Granted, I'm not arguing much because I saw how powerful she was, and I'm not going to pick a fight with that. "Well, I'm not. I'm a temporarily displaced necromancer, and that's that," I say, striking the floor with one of my hoofs to emphasize the points. "Nay, thou art mine most precious and adorable foal," a near bellowing voice answers from behind me, and I jump in shock, and that would be bad enough if I wasn't plucked out of midair and quickly held tightly to what I assume is Luna's chest. It's shockingly hard due to what feels like a cross between a breastplate and a necklace. I moan in pain due to having the wind pushed out of me and then pulled away. Great, not only does she have an obscene amount of magic, but a ridiculous amount of strength too. "I am not anyone's child," I wheeze out, only just, and there is a second of blowing. The sound of blowing. "We dost not care of thy protest, small one, for it has been a blessing for us both to have such a chance," she announces happily, and I'm quickly hoisted onto her back and carried off. It takes me a moment to process the rapid changes. The bouncing trip doesn't help, and I'm positive Luna's skipping as she goes. "What in the pits of all seven hells are you doing?" I demand, and she stops for a moment, and I feel the muscles on her back move a little, and I think she's turned to look at me. "We shall explain more when we have entered thy new chambers, my foal," she tells me, and the ride is much smoother as I turn things over in my mind. She wants to be in a private area. So assassination? No, probably not. I guess. "Good afternoon, Princess," someone says, and my head spins to face whoever it is. And you too, little prince, he continues, and my eyebrows go up. The question eats me for a few moments before I have to ask, exactly what did he mean by little prince? How well known am I ask, and Luna laughs slightly, but doesn't answer. So I have to sit and balance myself on the overly eager and ridiculously powerful entity that was now insisting she was my mother. I should have never modified my phylactery, I say with a sigh. The multiverse had gone insane since I did. Since thou modified thy what? Luna asks, and after a moment I grin. Time for a little payback. Thou shalt know when we have arrived at my new chambers, I tell her, in imitation of her own accent. She comes to a complete stop, and I wonder if I cross some unseen line. Then, to my surprise, she giggles and continues the trek. I'd personally been hoping for a snort of annoyance. Oh well. The rest of the trip quickly passes in silence, and then Luna stops rather suddenly, and I fall off. Before I can hit the floor, though, she catches me with her magic, and I'm lowered gently the rest of the way down. We have arrived, my fool, she says, and I can hear the door open slightly, and she walks in. I followed the sounds, but misjudged the distance and bump into her rear legs. I ran into soft as stone, so I fell flat on my rear. Oh my, be careful, my fool. 'Twould not do for you to be harmed, Luna reminds me as I pick myself up with a sigh. So this is my room? I ask, already planning to use a flash or a foresight spell to get a look of the room. It is, my little fool, Luna says, then I presume she looks back at me. Why art thou channeling magic? She asks, and I grunt in pain as I get a picture-perfect image of the room and quickly do all I can to commit it to memory. The room is huge, at least half the size of a tavern dining room. A low-hung bed is against the far wall with bright red blankets which contrast the dark green walls. A desk with a couple of books standing up was opposite of the bed with a strange chair. It's probably made for ponies. There is a tall basket next to the desk and a bookshelf beyond it. Opposite of the bookshelf is a dresser, and on the wall to the left of the door are 3 hooks embedded in the wall. I was taking a look at the room, I say calmly as I mull over the layout in my mind. Compared to most upper-class rooms, it's downright humble. Still, being bare as it is, it's less likely I'm likely to trip on anything. Was thy look enlightening? This chamber is to thy taste, we hope, Luna says in a nod. We shall admit, 'tis rather small, she says. I've lived in caves for a long time. This is comfortable, I tell her with a slight smile. I'm actually starting to believe that they don't mean me any harm. Still, I shouldn't let my guard down. Now, my little fool, sit down upon the bed, and we shall explain why we have chosen to be thy mother, Luna says, and I walk past her before clambering onto the bed. I turn and sit facing her. Art thou comfortable? Luna asks, and I nod. Now, which question dost thou wish for us to answer? The adoption now, please, I say, remembering my manners at the last second. 'Tis an unfortunate truth that the unknown frightens the masses. When we were feared and on the rarest of occasions attacked, we descended into a brutal monster. When thou were feared and frequently attacked, thou retained thy patience and simply sought to survive. I admire that, my little fool, she tells me, and my eyebrows go up and I start thinking. Is this the history I had sensed between the 2 sisters? Despite this admirable strength of character, thou need guidance within both a new form and world. Furthermore, we search deeper than our true trusting sister. We have seen that thou art self-taught and holds many mistakes for fact, she continues, and I flinch a little. Yes, she's right, but I really hate hearing it. Also, we do not trust the nobility so dearly as our sister. Shielding thou from negative influences and helping thou heal will also be needed tasks. Luna begins to explain, and I can no longer stay silent. And what are you getting out of this, exactly? I ask, because I really can't think of anything she's gaining for the sheer amount of effort looking after someone completely blind will be. We shall be getting a most adorable foal for a son, she says, sounding genuine, but I don't buy it. We shall finally have a most adorable subject to pour all of our affection upon, she continues in a slightly lowered tone and then I'm grabbed and nuzzled. So you're just looking for something to love? I ask, stunned by this. What was I to her? Some plaything to put bows on the coo and over? Make no mistake, thou art not a plaything. We desire a foal to love and teach. All foals need guidance, and we desire to grant it, and as many foals thou art new to this life and world, she explains, her voice trailing into an ethereal tone. She then puts me down, but not before I get a kiss just under the horn stump. What is up with this woman? This is just seriously wrong, even if she's being honest. Necromancers aren't exactly lovable, I tell her, and I hear nothing, but I guess she's smiling. I don't know. We shall decide that for ourselves, my little foal, she says gently before humming a moment. Thou also asked of the title of prince thou hast received, she mutters slowly to herself, but I nod anyways. This place is confusing, but the sooner I get things moving, the sooner they can crash and whatever assassins are hiding will come out. All living nobility is a descendant to our sister and us. The nobility in their foolishness grants greater privilege to those whom resemble us more closely. Furthermore, thou hast also been adopted by us, she explains, and I turn it over in my mind. It makes some sense because it appeals to the vanity of most nobility, but there is still another question. Foolishness? I ask, singling out the word and tilting my head a little closer in expectation. I get a little nuzzle for that. I try not to flinch. Ourselves and our sister may be the diarchs of Equestria. However, it is not our nature that allows us to rule. It is experience and compassion that grants us our reign, she explains before trailing off. Why would she? Oh yes, the brutal monster bit. Now, we asked thee a question. Dost thou remember it? She asks, and I nod. There are two types of phylactery. The type I use is a crystal with a rebirth spell in it. I tell her, and guess she's going to ask what the normal type is, and what a rebirth spell is. I sigh and decide to just answer before asked. A rebirth spell lets you return from death one time per cast. It also has a time limit lasting only a day and a night. Putting it in a crystal takes away the time limit, I tell her, and I guess her eyes are wide at the implications. I miss being able to see. Then, in what manner lays the other form of phylactery? Luna asks, and I can't still stop myself grimacing. A soul jar that binds its owner into an unending half-life, I tell her bluntly, and there is a gasp from the man. 'Tis most foul, she chokes out in disgust, and I nod. It is also the coward's way out, I say sternly. A little surprised we have something to agree on, but this is a fairly black and white topic. Why would thou name thy rebirth den after such a wretched object? She demands sternly, and I cough into one of my hoofs. I didn't. Others did. Since I returned from death time and time again, many thought I was a lich. Because of this guild who called themselves Hunters of Death, tracked me down and blasted me with undeath-destroying energies. When such attacks failed, they interrogated me for a day before letting me go. I explained, and I can't hear her breathe anymore. What in the hell is going on? We must assume there is more. What occurred next? Luna asked me, and I realized that I literally had someone listening with bated breath. How strange. After that, I was occasionally known as the Lich Who Lives, and due to that title I became a great object of fear. Many presumed that this knowledge was born of vile experiments. It was not, I say, and I feel a clenching on my heart. This was one of those times when my life went from bad to worse. I didn't like thinking about it too much. We have heard enough. If thou dost not wish to continue, then thou need not continue. Luna tells me, and I feel much less tense and something else. It's familiar, but I can't name it. Thank you. It is hard to talk about, I say slowly, not really believing that she's being this considerate. If thou art ready, then we shall give thee a tour so that thou might familiarize thyself with the palace, she says, and I turn over the idea. Probably a trap, but I'm already in close quarters to a much more powerful enemy, so why not? I nod and hear her move a little. Assuming that she's moved us already, I start off the bed and slam right into her leg for the second time. Ow. Art thou alright? She asks me, and I shake my head a little to clear the slight ringing sensation and then nod. I'm fine. It is hard to navigate anywhere when blind, I tell her, and there is a silence. Yes, 'tis rather awkward to interact with one so impaired, she admits in a tone I think is sheepish. Perhaps we shall move with some effort of sound, then, Luna states, and I nod with a slight hum of confirmation. After that I hear crisp-sounding hoof falls despite the carpet, and I then very clearly hear the door unlatch. Why wasn't it that loud before? Is she enhancing the noise? Probably. We leave the room, and she heads to the right, and I follow with a few meters between. It's all the space I need to run. There's an interesting echoing effect, so I assume the roof is much higher than in most buildings. It's possibly domed, which is great for bouncing sound around. Suddenly she comes to a stop, and I pause in no time, so as to not slam into her for a third time. "'Tis a restroom, so thou may relieve thyself. When thou hast regained thy sight, then ye shalt receive larger and more accommodating quarters," she explains, and I am thoroughly confused. Relieve myself of what? Exhaustion? I thought that was part of what the bed is for, and that's in my chambers, I ask, confused. I mean, the chamber pot, toilet, was in the bathroom, which made some sense as Celestia told me both bath and toilet were often in the same room. No, it's a lavatory. They use many different words for it now, Luna tells me, and I sigh. Well, that's just confusing, I state, and walk towards the wall. Where's the door? I ask, and there's a hollow knocking sound, so I assume Luna just knocked on the door. I put my hoof on it and begin feeling around until I feel the doorknob. What in the round doorknobs? How do you even open them? Ponies of all races yield a telekinetic ability within their forehooves. It allows a very firm grip, Luna tells me, and I nod and will the knob to turn with my hoof, and it does so with ease. I give a little cry of surprise. I learn that this door opens inwards, but I catch myself with little issue. I take it I'm mostly in the room proper now, right? I ask, bracing myself for a headache. Thou art planning to use the sight spell? Luna asks, and I nod before focusing, and it feels like the roof came down exclusively on my head. Still, I got the imprint of the room. It was all glossy stone with what looked like an emptied pool at the opposite end of the room. To the right was a toilet, and to the left opposite of the toilet was the sink. It looked nice, I suppose. I'm more used to holes by trees and such. Seems a little much for dirty deeds, I say rallying, and there's a snort of amusement from behind me. I reach out to my left and grab the door as I back up. I could not have grabbed the flat wood with a normal hand. This could be useful. Perhaps to some tastes, Luna says in an amused tone as I close the door. So where to next? I ask, and she clucks her tongue for some reason. Art thou going to cast thy spell within every room we enter? She asks, and I shrug. Depends on how often I'm going there, I reply, and there is silence for a moment. Fair enough. I'll show you to one of the smaller dining rooms. Unless it's taken to your room, you are likely to eat in our next destination, Luna tells me, and leads me off for a few minutes. Then, without any warning, I get a feeling of entropy and agony from underneath me. "What the?" I demand in shock, tilting my head down to the floor. I try to sense it further, but then I get a feeling of solidity and a pattern. "What has occurred, my fool?" Luna asks, and I try to sense it further. It's folded up on itself. The agony pouring from it is horrendous, but there is no spirit remaining. That I can sense at least. We're standing over a dead body. It's folded up and died in horrible agony, I say, surprised to find a corpse inside the palace. Most nobles have the decency to cremate their enemies or dump them in a river. "What? Under which tile does it lay?" she demands, and I try to feel out where they are and stomp down at the tile just in front of me. "Mostly this one, not all of it though," I say, and step back as I feel magic being used there, and there is a crack and then a grinding noise as the strangely thick tile moves up. A quick howl of putrid air rushes up, surprising me, and a sharp, musty smell of death descends a moment later. "Guards!" Luna screams out with enough force to blow away some of the air, and when my ears stop ringing, I hear dozens of hoof-falls rushing towards us. "Our fool has uncovered the results of a murder most foul. We want this investigated post-haste," she commands, as I cough in the now dusty and putrid air. "He died in there. Forced in, he died in darkness and despair," I say as a flurry of images floats towards me. Why though? I'm not concentrating, so I couldn't be feeling this unless his spirit is still here. About time something normal happened.